Did you tell him about Morgan trying to sell a $100 pair of shoes for $20?
$20. $20. Let's get cash.
Cash.
She's spinning her hand and everything.
Cash walks.
Welcome now to the Crank Revolution Podcast, your source for cycling shenanigans. Listen now to our hosts, the purveyors of pedals, as we teach you more about cycling every single episode. So sit right back, pop a cold one, and enjoy our show.
And welcome back to Crank Revolution. Oh, we've got a great topic today. You know what time it is? It's getting late in the season, isn't it? What happens late in the season?
Cyclocross season.
Cyclocross.
New season starts.
I was going to say
New
gravel
season.
season 2.0.
Yes, that's one way to
Fat
look
bike
at
season, too.
Well,
Yep.
cyclocross. So real quick, though, how many of us here have raced cyclocross?
I raised my hand.
How about you, Merc? Have you done much cyclocross?
Not really. I want to. It's one of those things that I've always wanted to do. And
I think so many of our listeners probably don't even know what it is. It's kind of, in the United States anyhow, it's a smaller genre bike racing thing.
Well, I'm sorry. You have the word of the month calendar or something?
Genre? No, they were standing arms akimbo. It detracts from their pulchritude, I'll tell you. Cyclocross in America is not as big as other parts of the world. Yes, Greg.
Well, you asked them. You didn't ask me. I feel a little left out.
Well, you said gravel 2.0.
Well, yeah. I just don't understand why anyone wants to ride a bike, then hop off a bike, then run a little bit, then hop back on the bike, and then run a little bit more, and then hop off the bike, and then, run up some stairs or something like that. And you could just, ride a bike.
Sounds like fun.
It does, but here's the thing. For cyclocross, for the people who don't know, it's not a regular type of bike race. It's not 100 miles. It's not something we're going to be on perfect roads or perfect gravel or any of those things. TC, why don't you walk us through what a typical cross race in the Midwest would be like, and then we'll talk Europe.
All right, I like it. So yeah, typical Midwest cross race is going to be about up to a 2-mile course. It's going to be usually like in a forest reserve. So we're talking pretty, small, short distance, high speed, lots of tight corners, lots of tight chicanes, which is a common thing that Chicago
Speaking of
cross.
the word of the day.
Chicane.
So chicanes are when you find a hill, which is rare to find here, but when you find one here, you put corners along the hill so that you have some that are off camber and some that have, camber way on the top of the hill and then off camber again. So it makes it very difficult to go through those corners.
Hold on. I need to get the dictionary so I can keep up. Keep going.
Yeah,
though.
there's a whole lot of it, a lot going on here. After we have the 2-mile course, very kind of tight circuit, and you're running a number of laps. Laps are going to be based on time. So typically races are from the 30 to 1 hour length, 30 minutes to 1 hour. Based off of the first and second lap, the race organizers are going to decide how many total laps you have. So you start the race knowing I'm going to ride for a half hour. Half hour could be 4 laps, could be 5 laps. Very big difference between riding a 5th lap of that course as opposed to 4. So when you're coming through on that second lap and you start to see what's going on, definitely changes the pace and the mentality of the racer as well. Typically, you're going to have in the Chicago series about 100 racers, I think is where they're maxing it out, maybe up to 150. A lot of people, small area, difficult to pass. And then, you do have some barriers in the way, some either hurdles, flyover, which is a series of stairs, which you climb the stairs and then mount the bike and ride down a ramp on the backside. And during that course, you typically go under the flyover as well. Very, very fun.
Yeah,
150
stairs.
people within a 2-mile course.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And
How
stairs.
wide is this course?
Like 30 feet.
That sounds
that's
really
like the
tight.
average.
Well, so paint a picture, though. For a bike race, think about this, though. I have seen sand pits.
Yep. Yeah. So when you when you get a nice course that goes to and you get to tear up a golf course, you use the bunkers and you get to jump into and ramp out of the bunkers. Yeah, it's
So
exciting.
imagine my surprise when TC first told me many years ago, yeah, come on, let's go cross racing. And I'm sitting there going, okay, what do I expect? I come out, there's grass. I'm like, no problem. And he's like, you've got those off-camber turns. I didn't want to admit, off-camber, I'm thinking, what part of my bike do I have to take off? Didn't know what that meant at the time. But it turns out it's basically just turning around kind of in a chicane. So a 90-degree turn, no, a 180-degree turn uphill. And that's sometimes very hard to do.
Especially as course conditions get sloppy. One of the things where you see cyclocross, what makes it really interesting is the course conditions change and they change how that race happens. So if you're sitting there and watching a whole day of racing, you'll see the guys starting at 9 a.m. have a very different course to ride than the guys at 3 p.m.
Well, one of my favorite was they had this course that was like in a retention pond where the outside circle, and it started raining midway through the day. So you'd see all these racers trying to keep a straight line while there's like a 35-degree dip all the way across the track, and they're just rear end. They're just sliding down the hill. They couldn't even get back up. It was amazing.
Yep.
Sounds like a bunch of drunken frat boys trying to walk back to their.
The late races are.
Yeah, Cat 5.
Cat
Yeah.
5 racing is.
So if you're out there and you're a cyclist and you're kind of wearing one of those whole bodysuits doing, time trials, it's a little bit different here because not only you have
Well,
those
skin
sand
suits are
pits-
totally a thing in cross.
Oh, but so are super women outfits. I've seen those in
Yes.
cross too.
And again, going back
and
to Cat
costume.
5. Yeah. But yeah, the skin suits are very much a thing in cyclocross racing.
Well,
So-
the thing though, wait, so you've got the sand pits, you've got the grass, you've got the mud and all these things. And then the first time I stumbled upon one of these weird little wooden barriers, I thought you're not supposed to go through it. Turns out you're supposed to go over it. And there's several ways you can go over it. Mine was just simply to crash over it.
Well, two things. One, I'm glad you decided not to just stop and then burrow your way under it. Knowing you, that is a very
Yes,
real
digging,
possibility.
yes.
Yeah. Two, what is Cat 5?
Bike racing as a whole is brought up into different categories. And so your category is the class at which you're qualified to race. For local stuff, Cat 1 is going to be your top. Above that, you have UCI categories, UCI Pro, UCI Continental, or National Pro.
So Cat 1 is the semi-pros, almost.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, it's the local pros.
The
When I
AAA
stopped racing,
the
I
AAA
was
racers.
negative Cat 2. It was
Yeah, so
great.
Cat 1's the local pros.
Pretty impressive.
And then, Cat 2, Cat 3, Cat 4, and then Cat 5 is your, hey, I just showed up day one. I'm going to try
I'm
and
wearing
race.
it. I'm wearing an inflatable T-Rex suit.
I
and
bought this
wanna
bike
ride.
a week ago.
When
and-
I was racing, I was Cat 7. So
Yeah, that's true
yeah.
too.
But when you come up on this barrier, imagine you're all of a sudden cycling along. What is it, 18 inches, something like that? It can vary in
typically
size.
an 18-inch wood barrier. And
Yeah,
there's
so
typically two or more in
it
succession.
forces you to either dismount the bike or, if you're good, bunny hop, the barrier.
So we're doing it in a forest preserve. We're doing this in a golf course. We're doing it somewhere that isn't pavement, clearly.
in the Midwest.
So I can take my road bike out and do this?
You could try.
It would be interesting.
Yeah.
So, like, what would I want to do? Or what do I want to have to be ready to do cyclocross?
Cyclocross bike.
And
Okay.
yeah, well, here,
Okay,
well,
N
here's
plus-
the thing.
N plus one
Let me-
aside.
Let me interrupt you. Here's the thing: is that TC is correct. It should be a cyclocross bike. Gravel bikes are a completely different geometry that wouldn't really suffice to the cyclocross course.
Well,
Most-
believe it or not, you have to actually shoulder the bike. There's a lot of different disciplines, but if you're going to break your bike out, though, for cyclocross season, let's first check in with TC and
I
from
wanna-
the
I wanna keep
Mechanics
going.
Mouth.
I know. I want to keep going too
Yeah.
because there's so much more.
Hey guys, this is TC, and today's tech tip is very cyclocross specific. We're going to talk about brake pad toe. And so that is the specific angle of the brake pads. And so what you want is for the front of the brake pad and the front of the bike to be closer to the rim than the rear of the brake pad. This allows so that as you apply pressure to the brakes, that brake pad gets to flatten out and get a really nice contact to the rim. If you have a brake that is reverse toed, that's a recipe for the squeakiest, squealiest, loudest bike ever. One of the things that I had personally with one of my brake pads for a cyclocross bike was I had a very difficult time because if you put too much toe on, you can get a fork chatter, and that's when the fork flexes and you get shaken off the bars. So you got to get just enough, it's that Goldilocks zone. Not too much toe, not too little, not just right. And that took me about a month to figure out for that bike. But yeah, so brake pad toe, very specific for cyclocross because for cantilever brakes, it's going to give you the best stopping power and the least amount of chatter and noise.
That was TC and from the Mechanics Mouth. Now,
All right, we got to go back to this though.
Wait a second.
We got to go back.
Wait a second. I want to say one thing. That's why I tow it the opposite way because I want people to
honk,
know
honk.
that I'm coming.
Yeah, it's your horn, so you don't have
I
to
may
shout
have
at
done
people.
that for years just to make him upset.
No,
But
Oh,
actually,
there you go.
Back to this. So Greg was talking about using a gravel bike for cyclocross. It's just, recipe
I know
for disaster.
that was
Why?
actually just it hurt myself, and I know it hurt TC when you
Yep.
brought that up.
Look, if you can use a cyclocross bike for gravel, therefore I should be able to use a gravel bike for cyclocross
No.
because math.
have you ever ridden a cyclocross bike on a long distance gravel?
No, because I have a
It's-
gravel bike.
Terrible.
It's very twitchy.
It is, isn't it?
So cyclocross bikes have a shorter wheelbase. So it's going to make the cornering, the handling of it more aggressive, but not as comfortable for long riding, not as shock absorbing either. Also, the bottom bracket shell and the bottom bracket height. So for a cyclocross bike, it's going to be much higher so that you can clear those pedals while pedaling through in a corner and not clipping roots. Gravel bikes, very low bottom bracket shell relative to most every other bike. Big chance of really not doing so well for cyclocross.
I don't like you shaming the height of my bottom
I
bracket.
kind of want to
It's-
see
it's- yeah, your
Greg,
bottom
though,
bracket show's way too
jumping
low.
over an 18-inch barrier while shouldering a steel bike and somebody just clobbers into him. It'll be fun.
I mean, I've raced cyclocross with a steel bike,
well,
but it was
special.
a steel cyclocross bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually,
my
you know what?
steel bike would be 40 pounds. It would be someone runs into me and then they just lay
that's
flat.
right.
I'm like, I'll finish before you.
I
panniers,
picked
couple of
that up.
bricks.
You are correct. So I do have a question for you, TC. I know a lot. I know enough to make myself dangerous. Crank length. That's always the one.
Mhm.
I know it's a little bit advanced, but would you shorten the crank length on a?
And so, yeah, what we're talking about specifically is crank arm length.
Correct.
And so, yeah,
correct.
that is the length from the center of the bottom bracket shell along the crank to the center of the pedal spindle. And so most folks, like myself, who are about 5'10", riding a 56 centimeter frame, you're going to be looking at a 172.5 as a most common crank arm length for that size frame. Frame sizes, as they shrink down, crank arms shrink as well.
That was
And
a
so-
lot of German I just heard.
I mean, yeah, that's always going to pop in there. Yeah, I do not feel the need to shorten my crank arm lengths. One of the things that I find is, yeah, you do need a lot of, cyclocross racing, a lot of high power and typically high cadence. I was running one by back when I was racing, which in 2013 and 14.
might have been ahead of
yeah,
your
yeah, I know.
time.
So progressive.
Pretty
You
rare.
were a hipster.
Yeah.
for
You were
all
doing it
this.
before it was cool.
Yeah, run a 39, 1227 cassette. It was good. It was good stuff.
Did you also wear flannel with a
No,
weird mustache
no,
at the same
I was
time?
total roadie shaped legs, embrocation cream.
Yeah, Embro.
Ah,
Nice.
Embro.
I wear that at night. I get cold.
I know it's the
Yeah.
greatest thing ever.
I remember the first intro to cyclocross, though. TC was talking it up, and he used to drag me out at 6:30 on a Saturday morning to go over to the Forest Preserve. But we didn't have, like, good training trails. We had, like, the horse trails. They're all muddy and full of horse hooves, and he's
Wouldn't that be
flying
good
along.
training?
Well, it would be,
Why did
except
all the
see,
horses leave their hooves?
maybe horse tracks would be a
full of
little
horse
more.
hooves.
Well, maybe those horses were like Pez dispensers, where after a while they just had a new hoof
Wait,
pop
horses
out of the
don't
body.
shed
They're-
their
are they-
hooves?
are-
Yes, horse tracks down in the mud. I learned how bike handling. You got to be soft in that saddle. You really can't be cyclocross, really heavy and thuddy on the bike. I'm as graceful as a sledgehammer, it turns out, because I'd watch him and he'd go up the corners and kind of like bunny hopping things, which is popping both wheels up. He'd be flying along. I crashed maybe 10 times in the first 5 minutes just on the horse trails.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
And
well, I
then
was
we
trying to
we
learn.
tried to go mountain biking with cross bikes.
I crashed that too.
Wait, hold
Yeah,
on.
you did.
Hold on.
You had actually saved me because my leg went through the frame and I actually was trying to do a push up and could
yeah,
not
you
get
tried
up.
to become a. He was working
I'm
towards
sorry.
becoming a
I'm learning
contortionist.
all these things about Jeremy and riding bikes.
Wait, hold on. You're learning about it right now?
Yeah, good point.
I'm the only person I know who can crash, who can't get up.
You're the only
'Cause
one
of
who
leverage.
crashes in a straight line on a flat surface.
I'm still
On a
baffled
dry
about
surface.
your leg going. How?
Actually, then
Hey,
you
I couldn't see it because I was face down yelling for TC to come back, and he comes back and goes, "What the heck did you do?" He couldn't even figure it out.
Was he flopping on his
I,
back like a turtle?
I just like I was like down the trail and I was like, oh,
It's
that's
like a June bug.
That's a ruckus behind me, and so I'm like, okay, cool. Like turn around down the trail, climb back up. Like, oh, okay, yeah. This man is origami'd himself into this frame.
Yeah,
I'm just imagining a 1990s like crash test dummy thing just
Yeah.
exploded. There's limbs everywhere. Jeremy's just like, can you help me?
Yeah,
no, do not sing that song. Stop.
Well, the best part is, though, he saw me do all of these things, and he still thought it'd be a great idea to do. Now, in our cyclocross racing in the Midwest, anyhow, at least in Chicago, starts off with a relay race. He thought I should be a good partner for relay. Well, tell us how your first lap went. You got the whole shot.
Well, no, I didn't get the whole shot, but I was like top 5.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
he
coming through
comes
on the first
rolling
lap.
in, and I'm all excited. I'm like, yes, I'm going to do this. I jump on the bike. The first barrier, now keep in mind, like I said, I'm kind of like a sledgehammer in the saddle. I had a carbon seat post, aluminum alloy frame. I was feeling pretty good. I dismount. I go to step through on the first one because when you swing your leg over, you kind of got to step through and unclip and then get the bike on your shoulder looking graceful. First one I did pretty good. And I
Clocked
was
you in
like,
the back of the
yes! And I'm wearing a kilt. Maybe you shouldn't wear a kilt and weird, strange attire when you're trying to also learn something. Second barrier. I get over the barrier and I'm thinking it's great. I swing my whole body up over the top and I miss the pedal on the other side. Well, my 200 and at the time, like 50-pound self, hit the saddle, broke the seat post completely off.
Knocked yourself unconscious and you laid there.
Worse.
Until
The carbon fiber little busted bits, because I came down hard, the sledgehammer, right in between my inner thigh area and stabbed me. And I started bleeding. And
Is
then,
that why your voice got higher after that?
well, maybe. But the best part is one of the guys on the side goes, nope, DNF. And he grabs my broken saddle off. And I was kind of inspired, kind of like, well, our last interview, Hannah Jordan, she won't take a DNF. So I threw the bike on my shoulder, running in my kilt the rest of the course. Now, keep in mind, TC at this point is watching every other person come through. And he's like, where the heck is Jeremy?
Yep.
Well, the great thing about cyclocross, besides the cowbells, the hand-ups, and the alcohol, all they see on the final hill is a guy in a kilt running along with blood down his leg. One guy yells out, freedom! And I'm like, this is my dream. It's like Baywatch. I'm running in slow motion with a bike on my shoulder, and I get there, and I look at TC. I'm like, go, go. And he's like, nope.
You can take my electrolytes, but you'll never take my freedom.
So here am I going, we're not going to DNF. Come on, TC, go. And he's looking at me. No, dude. There's no point at this point.
And also, like, the race was over. They had opened up the course to pre-riding. And so it's like I'd be trying to race through like a dozen people that are just trying to get their practice laps.
By the time I got back, the kids were out like enjoying the trail, cutting the grass. It was perfect.
Yeah, it was a less than ideal situation.
Yeah, so I haven't really raced that.
But I was kind of bummed
then.
because the part where we figured out where you broke your saddle was before the only hard turn on that course, which was a hard right-hander that was very off camber inside of a tree. And if you decided to fall there, and I'm going to say you decided to,
yes,
you would just be dropped off another 20 feet into the water.
the lake.
There was a small river there.
Please tell me someone put like an inflatable crocodile just sitting there weighted down.
Way more fun. So I was really half expecting Jeremy to come back just covered in
mud,
just soaking wet and covered in like seaweed.
You realize if we ever do an event,
Oh,
Jeremy's just going to just belly flop into the mud.
The seaweed, the sea monster.
Yeah, he wanted me to crash in the water.
You wanted him to be old Greg?
Little advice: if you're super heavy, maybe you're clobbering your saddle and gonna miss the pedal and break carbon fiber, maybe you should start with an alloy C post.
Or don't attempt to race in a kilt.
Well, I can't concede that. I mean, come on.
As a first time.
Yeah, maybe that was
Okay.
smart. There was 1,000 years of history going into that, though. I feel like that had to happen. Well, so for as much as my crash, I always remember that. I still have the race numbers. Maybe I'll put it up in the bike shop. I remember your crash. You had a pretty good crash. Well, no, but one of the biggest ones, you had a problem with your cleat, and I watched you. I was filming, and I'm like, this is going to be the greatest thing ever. He's going to pound out and win the race. What happened?
I was having a good season. We're like, I think 6 or 7 races in, and it's typically a 10-race series in Chicago. Because I had a good series, I was getting called up every race. And so call-ups are how they organize people in line to start the race. Because your race position is so key, I was in the front row, which is, front row.
It's kind of cool.
It's like top 8 people. It's really, good feeling, good place to start. Generally a good race you'll have being in that top row. Unless, sitting there, super amped, ready to go, gun goes off. I always start with my left foot in, and I clip my right foot in as I start pedaling. My right foot just won't clip in, just kicking that pedal, and it won't clip in. That first start of the race is so chaotic. You got people whizzing by you if you're not going anywhere. I wasn't going anywhere.
You were drowning in reverse.
About 3 or 4 rows past me.
Well, yeah, he was falling backwards through the pack as just the whole world passed him.
Drowning, I think, is generally what someone would say in that case, not in reverse, because
that was the part I was lost in. Drowning,
it would be either drowning
I was ejecting
or
so
going
much water
in reverse.
Yeah, I was going in reverse. So like the 3rd or 4th line of riders comes to pass me, and this guy just clips my bar, and I just go right over and just right down. And then someone runs me over because it's just this chaos of, another 40 people behind us trying to race through. And so I just kind of like curl up in a ball. There's nothing much I can do, and I stand up.
Solid defense.
And then I stand up when everything's cleared, and I grab my bike, and oh, my front wheel's over there. Okay, cool. Part of this is broken then, because that was together when I was on the bike.
Oh, it broke your fork, didn't it?
Yeah, it broke the fork a little bit.
I'm so proud of him.
A little bit.
When I have a crash, it's kind of like flailing and ending up needing help. You actually immediately...
I had a cross race where I got 10 feet past the start line, and I had to DNF.
Maybe. That's something to think about, though, because cyclocross is a very special sport. It takes place if the weather is warm. It takes place if it's raining. It takes place if it's snowing.
It's better when it's nasty.
Well, and that's the thing is, how many weeks is the race? Is it 12 weeks?
No, it's better racing.
Is it 12 weeks in our area?
I think it's
It's 10 to 12 weeks depending on.
Yeah, I've been out of town for a few years, so I haven't been racing this.
So the
Chicago
weather
series.
changes drastically, especially in the Midwest with Chicago.
Of course,
do you know what I loved about the spectator cyclocross? Number one, yes, they're all drinking, having fun. There's hand-ups, they're throwing out whiskey and all these other things.
I'm just upset that I did not know this was a thing. These are my people.
No, here's what's fun, though, is if you don't do well, it doesn't mean the crowd isn't behind you. I remember the first race I saw, a Cat 5 guy, he became known as Camelback Man. And he's riding like a 29er. He's got a Camelback, and people are lapping him and just lapping him. But the crowd isn't against him. He doesn't have to feel like he's losing. Everyone's cheering as he climbs up every hill or even crawling up some of them.
Well, I mean, for that season, he really became like a symbol of like, this is what cyclocross is.
Try.
Just try. Get out there, do your best. Everyone can race. Like, heckling is a total thing in cyclocross racing.
Oh, yeah. All the insults.
So TRY, not TRI.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so Rodney Dangerfield would have been great at a cross race because you're right. You try to insult the heck out of people, don't
but
you?
it's all in good fun.
Good
It's
fun.
all in jest. Yeah.
It's a party every weekend, and that's what it is. Hand-ups are fantastic.
Join us now as we expand your cycling nomenclature. Let's go to the keeper of cognition, the prophet of proficiency, the peddler of phraseology. Join us now with Professor Greg for Velo Vocabulary.
Welcome back to Velo Vocabulary. This is Greg. I am ready to drop some knowledge on you, and we're going to actually do a little quiz against the podcast versus Morgan. And by podcast, I mean you listeners out there, because these guys don't listen to anything I have to say.
I have a word I want you to describe.
What?
So your first word is hole shot. What do you think hole shot is?
You shoot a bullet into a hole on your bike if you're very, very talented and if you're in the army.
Wow. That's pretty darn good. Okay, you ready for your second one?
Yeah.
And this is the last one. Hand up.
Ooh.
You got to describe it.
You can ride your bike with your hands up like a unicycle.
Morgan, as always, you have the best definitions out there. Unfortunately, though, hole shot actually means that in cyclocross racing, you are wanting to be right up front, right when the gun goes off, because in cyclocross, it's freaking hard. It's muddy. It's crowded. You got all these people around you. All you want to do is be in first, because if you're not first, you're last. So you need to sprint right off that gun, and when you get through the end, you're going to realize you can take it easy for the rest of the time, because no one can catch up to you, because you conquered the hole shot. Hand up is actually, let's see, mountain bike notes, crit notes, folding bike notes. Oh, cyclocross notes. That's perfect. Thanks, buddy. Thanks for the hand up. All right, hand up. When you're middle of a cyclocross race, everyone standing on the side will be handing things out from the side. You're gonna reach up, you're gonna grab it. It could be a water bottle, it could be noon, it could be a donut. Heck, it could be a slice of Lou Malnati's pizza that you really know is going to slide down hard, and it's going to hurt as soon as it hits your gut. Or it could be a Coors Light. Either way, you got a hand up from the spectators.
My daddy drinks too much coffee. Goodbye, and now I can snap.
How many times did you grab shots of whiskey and you didn't realize it? What?
Well,
Ooh, that was a special
so the
moment.
one time that I grabbed a hand up. Hand-ups, yeah, this gentleman had a beer in one hand and a plastic cup in the other and was holding it on. I'm like, oh, logically, he's just pouring his beer into the cup and then giving it out because that's a normal thing to think.
Him.
No, he had a bottle of whiskey down by his feet and he was filling that in the cup, and so I grabbed the shot and
let's paint the picture of where you are. So you're how far into the race at this point?
Well,
Your
so
heart
this
rate's
was-
flying.
This was my second race of the day. I was racing the Cat 5 race, so
Hold
it
on.
really wasn't
What month are we in?
October?
So the leaves are changing. There's crisp air all around us.
The smell of apples.
The June bugs have just started their mating season.
You can smell the,
The yell
Mars
of
and
drunk
beer.
Chicagoans.
And TC goes for the hand up.
I mean, you're making it so much more epic than it was, because it was literally just like me going through in the course, having a good time. Like, oh man, yeah, beer sounds really good right now. Like, oh god, no, it's not beer.
Well,
Oh.
that's I've heard stories about the final race of the Chicago Cross season is always in downtown Chicago on Montrose Beach.
Harbor.
And I've had a friend that rode the whole season. He told me He was doing the Cat 5 as a final one.
Mm-hmm.
And he went up that big hill
Yep.
and came down, and there was a woman doing handouts. He's like, "Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'll take it." He knew it was a shot, but it was like a triple.
Like a triple Malort, too.
Yes.
Oh, I'm trying to imagine now, because my heart rate would be in the 170s, 180s. You're sweating, you're dying, and then to all of a sudden take a huge gulp of whiskey. That would be the worst thing I can imagine.
I
There's
nearly
nothing
Well,
worse.
here's the proper thing with hand ups though is generally you wait for the Cat 5s, Cat 4s.
Mhm.
When the Category 1, Category 2, 3s, they're racing for
Points and stats.
points
Well,
and
point
yeah.
stats. Some of them are sponsored, and it is illegal for the USAC and UCI cycling to grab a hand up.
Well,
So-
unless of course it's my daughter doing it, and the cute little thing with the dollar bill
I was
waving
going to
in front
say,
of them.
wait a minute, your daughter derailed someone's professional racing career. I remember shooting this. There's video of that too. Is all the time. Your daughter got all the kids into trying to give things
Oh, yeah.
away.
Yep.
We were going so broke between dollar bills and goo packets and everything else.
But it was fun. She enjoyed the heck out of it, and that's exactly what cross races are. It starts at 9:30 in the morning is the first race. Goes to, I think the last race is like 4.
It's like 4 at this point. Which
Yeah.
I mean
It's an all-day
the
thing.
late races. I mean, you're talking like you need to have lights almost.
Yeah.
Like, the sun's
Yeah.
almost down.
Wait,
And
so
most
is
of
there
the
tailgating?
time-
Please tell me there's tailgating. Like
Yes.
someone,
the whole thing.
Oh, it's a
someone's,
party.
And
someone's
most-
brought the whole rack. They're making ribs. They're like, hey, what do you want me to smoke these ribs for?
But no, but last week, seeing how they're getting more and more junior. It's not about teenagers now. They're actually getting the kids out on the courses. And when you see them, I remember seeing it one of the cross races we went to, which was last year or the year before. There was a
Yeah.
kid with a balance bike who would just kind of like kick along, and then he picks it up and then like climbs and falls over the barrier. I'm like, this is the
That's
future
adorable.
of cycling. What are some of the best cyclocross insults? Because what you don't realize when you hear someone yelling something really mean at someone, that is part of the spirit of cross, cowbells and insults. But what are some of the best insults you've
So
heard?
I know, I'm not sure if it's still active, but the Chicago Cross, ChiCrossCup.com had a Heckle Hall of Fame. And so I'm not sure if that's still active. If it is, go check that out. Some of my favorite insults get to really specific bike critiques. And so one of my favorites was I was racing once and I had just built my new bike, and there was about 15 millimeters of spacers above my stem.
Oh.
When I'm racing by, like, the guy's like, man, I mean, I had a pretty fancy bike. It's like, oh, it's too much carbon. You gotta shave some grams. And it's just love because it's this like total, only someone who's way into bikes is gonna notice this and then know what it is and give me a hard time for it. And it's very delightful.
I think the classic ones is my mom rides faster than
Yep.
you.
Oh, also just people calling out what bike you ride.
Yeah.
You know, one of my favorite was like, oh, yeah, of course you would ride a Scatante.
Well, I love how there's actually websites basically telling you, let's just touch this real quick. So it says get creative. So in other words, if you say ride faster or you suck, that's not going to cut a cyclocross
That's
because
just too basic.
other spectators are going to rate your ability to really nail into these
delivery
people.
comes into play here because there was a guy I remember who just went and everyone came by, you're slow, you're slow, you're slow. And he had the same delivery for everybody. It was It earned some recognition.
The nice
there.
ones are the signs when people make the signs of just one heckle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Like
here's, I love this one.
I love this one. You're like a Ben Folds song, sad and slow.
No, I love this one. You don't need a timing chip. You need a sundial.
No.
Actually, the last one on there, I thought gluing tubulars was the slowest thing in cyclocross, but now I know it's you. Because gluing tubulars takes 72 hours, in my opinion.
Oh, here's a brilliant one. The only time you were called fast was by your prom date.
That's a good one.
That's.
So don't be afraid to throw some of that shade at the riders.
I still don't understand why someone would want to get off their bike to do an activity when you could just sit on a perfectly good saddle for hours on end, miles on end, days on end in some cases.
But Greg, you don't have to get off your saddle if you do something called a bunny hop.
Yeah, just hop the barriers.
Yeah.
Not something I can do. I can't
It would
even get
be
my bike
actually,
3
you know what would
inches.
be interesting is watching Greg do, because there's courses that have stairs
Mhm.
that you
I'll try and hop the
are
stairs.
forced to dismount your bike and run up the stairs.
Unless
No,
you're Jens
unless you're
Voigt. Or no,
Sven Nys.
Nys. Oh,
Sven
Nys.
Nys.
How many?
Met him.
Yeah,
Awesome.
but wait a second. How many times did it take him? He had to actually line up a couple of times
Oh, I've seen this video.
Yeah, and so that was, to my knowledge, as I remember, it was 2. So the first time he didn't quite clear the top steps, so
he went back down.
Let's paint the picture real quick.
Down.
There were about 20 concrete stairs, but the difference was with the concrete stairs, there was maybe a 5 or 6 inch wide, kind of straight ramp up on the sides. So while other people are jumping off their bike, shouldering their bike, and running up, he just kind of bunny hopped, meaning both wheels up, and trying to like climb up on the side.
But also, there was a 180-degree turn with a barrier right after it, so he had to finish that turn, pick up speed, hop that barrier, then ride up this ramp.
And it's pretty steep too. I was pretty impressed.
I mean, it's a ramp that mimics stairs. Stairs are never really that flat, and so it's like a 45-degree angle straight up for 30
No, it's true.
feet.
Flatness and stairs have nothing in common with each other.
Give us an idea of how to approach what a bunny hop is. What's the technique?
And so, bunny hopping is when you pull back on the bars, and so getting that front wheel up, jumping and pushing the handlebars to create that flatness. Now, cyclocross racers are typically clipped in, and a lot of them will use a just simple pull and hop and just jump. Because your feet are attached to the bike, you're going to pull it up with you.
It's not always just one barrier, though.
Yeah, there's typically 2 in a row.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're not spaced equally.
Nope.
In order for you to really hop, pause, hop, and go through.
Well, one of the greatest photos I saw, and of course I just felt disgust. I looked at TC on your Facebook, and he's just like perfectly, the bike is parallel to the ground, but like 18 inches in the air, and he's just perfectly floating in the saddle.
Yeah, I used to have talent. That was a bike I rode all the time.
So,
very comfy on it.
In my case, if I were to come across these stairs, I probably would just pull out of my back pocket a sleeping bag or a tent, and I would just, I'm going to live there until the end of the race. Yeah, just people would come around, and I'm deep frying a turkey. It's like, yo, come back in 5 laps.
Tomorrow on the Oregon Trail, Greg gets dysentery.
But one of my favorite things about cyclocross is, especially early on in the races, because there's so many specific skills. Cornering's a skill, dismounting and remounting the bike is a total skill. You get to watch as the rider will progress. The first week, you'll have people trying to unclip and just crashing straight into the barriers. On a practice lap once, one of my good friends criticized me for dismounting too soon, because I dismounted and then took 2 steps before the barrier. You want to dismount right at the barrier, max speed, fastest clearance. And so he said that, and that's, whatever, one practice lap. I wasn't worried about it. So the next one I do, proper race dismount, right at the barrier, 1 step down, 1 step over, running through, remount, and he's about 10 feet behind me, and I hear him, so he unclipped his right foot, swung it over, and then hit the barrier. Just crashed right into it. So it's just like, oh, hey, Micah, how was that? Good for you?
Well, let's do this.
Oh, Micah, I hope you're listening to us right now.
I say you called him out by name. So, Micah, yes, I hope you're having a good time. But now we're going to cut over to Merck with an amazing story of triumph and woe.
Yes, and it's all going to be with cyclocross.
Whoa.
This is not about a race today. This is about a rider. I want to call out Mariana Vos, who is the most prolific winner of our generation. As a matter of fact, her first World Championships came at the age of 19. Not only in one discipline, but 2. She took the Cyclocross World Championship and the Road World Championships that year. Mariana has also won 7 World Championship titles in the cyclocross discipline by itself. Over the years, in 3 disciplines, the road, the track, and cyclocross, she has taken 12 titles to this date. Only is she a world championship 12 different times, she has so many wins, I can't even start to describe every single one of them. Now, Mariana has been compared to the great Eddie Merckx, which I think is a fantastic comparison. She also shares his nickname, the Cannibal. To this date, she still rides and wins all 3 disciplines. She is a fantastic tale of triumph.
I always love Triumph and Woe because Merck really knows everything about racing there is. But here's something I'm going to tell you real quick. We're going to cut to TC. We need some pointers. You're a resident racer who's done cyclocross. What are some of the ways people can get out there and actually do their event? Don't just be a spectator.
So now is the time to Google cyclocross in my area. Don't say in my area, like type where you are. That would probably help. But
that's a good pro tip.
One of the big ways to, like, most bike racing that I've ever found is set up through bikereg.com.
You mean the website where you could find the Trail Hop and Brewery Tour that Mike Nichols, our sponsored rider's doing on September 21st? That still has space available?
Yes, that exact website, bikereg.com.
Great.
Like the Trail Hop and Brewery Tour.
This year, September 21st?
2019.
Awesome.
Still spots available.
But we can sign up for cyclocross too.
As well, yes.
Actually, it's good because the season starts the following week.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, the proper Chicago race series starts September 28th then.
So wait, you're saying there's a ride where you can go out and ride a bunch of miles and actually go to a bunch of breweries on the way in Illinois? When is that again?
That would be September 21st.
Who would have
2019.
thunk?
And you can sign up for it on
Nichols would.
bikereg.com, like all cyclocross racing that I've ever found. And so it's one of those, bikereg.com, that's where a lot of racing is signed up for and set up for, and it's a really great place to find races in your area because it's a good, everything gets kind of collected there. It's a really great place. You can click cyclocross, put in your zip code, and boom, it'll pop out what races are available to you in a nearby way.
But one thing I did have to do, though, and I was surprised for the first one, you do sometimes have to get a license.
Yes.
So you need your racing license, then you'll reference that in your registration.
And this is dependent on where you are. So in Utah, all the cyclocross racing is non-USAC, so there's no license needed. But yeah, here where we have USAC regulation, which gives you points in proper categories, then you do have to have a license. I think the license is $60 a year.
It's a year, but there's also, if you're
And
not
there's a lot
going
of
to do
benefits and
well, yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to do the entire season, you just want to dip your toe in it, you
One day.
can get a 1 day
one day
license.
for $10 usually.
Yeah.
Or if you want to ride cyclocross in a T-Rex costume.
You totally
Yes.
can, but do that Cat 5. But then wait, if you're going to dust off that bike, what are some of the skills you should start practicing right now? Mounting and dismounting?
Mounting and dismounting while running, which is just a fun thing to say.
What does it even look like?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm imagining
So-
like a Centaur, but like the top half's a horse, the bottom half's a person. Is that a Minotaur?
and that's a person that's clipped into a bike.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's
a
a
strange.
satyr,
So-
right?
So
ooh.
the
That's a
common
goat.
dismount technique, both hands on the bars, right foot comes off because that's the drive side, so you want to stay away from the chain and the gears. Right foot comes off, and some people will swing that right foot behind their left leg. I'm more favorable to swing it past the right leg between the frame and the bike, and then plant in front of you. And then as you do that, you unclip your left foot.
But it'd be so much more hilarious to watch someone trip themselves. as
Exactly.
their right leg
It's
goes forward.
very fun to watch someone who plants that right foot and then that left foot does not unclip and they just crash into themselves and just instantly fall over. And then hopefully unclip as they fall over. 'cause
Well,
it's
so to
kinda hard
kind of
do.
paint the picture, the thing that's really funny is whenever I see people who have been either from Europe or kind of older school bike riders, they'll always get mounting by rolling the bike, stepping on the pedal, and then kind of kicking off and swinging their leg. Cyclocross is a lot like that as well, both
Yep.
getting on and getting off. Now, what you tried to teach me was as you swing over, imagine you've got that leg back like a graceful figure skater, but you've got to pull that leg straight through you in the frame. First time I tried to do that and tried to unclip my left, I face planted very hard.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
so-
you said to be like a graceful figure
I know.
skater to him.
I want to see what's going to happen.
Oh,
What
okay.
would Brian Boitano do? I
This
think
is
that's
true.
what it really comes down to.
I don't know. Who is that person and what would they do?
it's a
You don't watch South
Park
Park, do you? So I think mounting and dismounting is definitely something you should practice getting into it. What are some other skills you should do if you want to get out there in the next couple of weeks?
And it really comes down to bike handling skills, being confident and comfortable going into corners at high speed, things that will be muddy, slippery, getting comfortable with the bike getting loose, getting your tires out from under you, unclipping quickly, getting one foot down. Or there's a lot of things where it comes to where it may be faster to run a section than to ride it. So if you can very efficiently dismount and remount, you can kind of identify, hey, this is not going to work well to ride.
Well, and we've been talking a lot about Chicago and Midwest cyclocross. I want you guys to Google cyclocross and crashes because in Europe, oh my gosh, one of the greatest ones ever. There was like all these racers coming around. They're sliding down the mountain. Everyone's just covered. It was kind of like a mud fight, basically. But you hear that bum bum. It was just hilarious, kind of how it goes out there. But that's some very serious cyclocross.
The best advice I can really give is while you're spectating a cyclocross race, because God knows I'll never race one, is always deceive them in whatever liquor it is that you're going to be handing off to them. If it looks like you're going to give them water, make sure it's Everclear. If you're feeling a little evil, make sure it's Malort. Make sure it's kind of sugary sometimes, because if it's really sugary, it's going to be really difficult to clean off. And it's going to stain nicely on their wonderful bibs and their jerseys. So just keep spending all that good, hard work, getting them probably drunk while they continue making horrible choices. Because why would you get on a bike and run? I don't understand this. When you could just ride a bike for 18 hours at a time.
Well, whether it's amazing training from TC or simple acts of sabotage from Greg, this has been another amazing episode of Crank Revolution. Catch you guys all next week.
Ride more bikes.
Oh, Greg, we're going to be a cyclocross racer this year.
I want to hand out so much Malort.
Oh, my friends, that has been another episode of the Crank Revolution podcast. First thing we'd like to say is thank you. Thanks for being our listeners and sharing the show with your friends. Leave us a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts. We love the feedback. You can reach out to us by email at crankrevolutioncycling@gmail.com and find us on Facebook at Crank Revolution Media.